Welcome in, founders. I'm your host, Chris. Welcome to Next Round Ready. I'm super excited to have a very special guest. I've seen this guy pitch his company maybe 5 or 6 times now. He's got the pitch down pat. We're not going to go through that today, but I'm super excited to have Josh from Real Engineers on the show. Josh, welcome.
Hi, nice to be here.
So first, I want to start off with just your idea and your concept. Can you give me like the short pitch for that so the audience can know what it is?
Yeah, so Real Engineers is effectively Google Translator between engineers and recruiters. And what it really does is that most recruiters are not engineers themselves, but they have to hire engineers and know all those technical details. And my product just allows them to become experts without having to be experts, and engineers can talk the way they normally talk, not have to explain the details, but the details explain themselves to the recruiter.
See, I like the way that you put that with the translator, because I think now a lot of companies, I've seen this a lot, I don't know if you have, where people are applying for jobs using AI and they're reviewing job applications using AI.
Yeah.
And it's just so much friction on both sides. It's just chaos.
Yeah, I call it the spy versus spy game.
Yeah.
So what happens is like you get this one company that's going to sell an AI to help people get jobs. And then that same company will be like, hey, we know that people are using this AI to get jobs, so we'll build you a detector. And so they're just making this artificial war between both sides.
And it goes in circles, and I feel like nobody wins because the guy that's trying to get employed can't get hired, but then the employer doesn't find the employee they might actually need. So then you just go in this circle of nobody getting a job, nobody getting hired.
Yeah, it feels totally unfair because it's not about what I think hiring should be, which is finding the truth, not finding the right words. And so, you have these two sides just trying to one-up each other constantly.
So you mentioned that it's for the recruiters. Now, I want to get a little more specific in here with who you're working with, like the both sides of this.
Yeah. So the company's called Real Engineers because right now our focus is on engineers, specifically hardware engineers. So one half of it is hardware engineers. So these are your mechanical, electrical, chemical, all those guys. And on the other side are recruiters. They work for the big companies and their job is to hire engineers.
Oh, I love that. I think you went after a perfect market too, because I can think of a lot of markets, industries that need something like this. But I think with engineers, it's probably the most prevalent because their job, like what they've done is so complex, right? Like their history of their work is something where it takes a lot more effort, energy, experience, skills to understand. If I'm working in a lot of other spaces, I don't need to come to you with this whole outline of projects I've done. But with engineers, you need a lot of proof, right?
Yeah. And they're really like esoteric knowledge, right? Not everybody knows it because that's what they do. They specialize in a certain field. And the difficulty is like, okay, now I have to explain this to someone who effectively doesn't speak the same language.
I like that. And so let's talk about this from both sides. So let's talk about how this is really serving the engineer, the guy who's maybe fresh out of college. He's he's trying to get a job right now. He has a little bit of skills. He has connections, but he still can't get a job. How does your product help him get a job?
Yeah. So the main problem we help him fix is that first barrier to get a job is the recruiter. Right. For most companies, it's like that. It's only not the case for the smallest of small companies. And they need to be able to explain their skills. And usually the way it works is I have to write the perfect bullet point, right? And the moment they say, hey, this is how I'm unique, this is the special knowledge and unique, you need to explain special knowledge, you need special words, right? And those special words become like, I don't know what you're talking about, it doesn't match the description, sorry, you're out. So the problem we help them face is like, you don't have to explain it yourself anymore. If you've done anything that proves that you know it, we do the explaining.
I love that, man. That makes it so much easier. I'm thinking about the engineers who are like fresh out of college, who have done the work, they've done projects and stuff like that, and they have the proof. And just how frustrating that must be to go out here and apply to different jobs or work with recruiters and getting ghosted and stuff. Like, that must
so
be
the
annoying.
engineers I talked to, like, I was like, don't you like talking about your work? He's like, yeah, but I like talking about with you or other people who are in the same work as me. It's like, it's like if you're a real fan of a book or a movie, you want to talk about it with someone else who's also a fan of that movie, not someone who doesn't really care about that movie. It's kind of like that.
I like that. Okay. So that's serving engineers. And let me ask you this too, because I think this is really important. At what stage should an engineer be looking to use your product? Is it the
Yeah.
guy who is in year 1 or 2, or is it just after graduation and I have some skills under my belt?
I think if you're trying to land your first internship and you've done something outside of just your classwork, this is perfect for you. Yeah, from landing your first internship to your first job to your second and third and even your fourth, this is probably perfect. And you've done something outside of the normal classwork.
Ah, I love that. Now, before we get to the other side of this, I
Yeah.
kind of want to understand how you got to this idea of making this product. Because,
Yeah.
again, I think helping engineers and people that are in certain fields of expertise is very important. I know a guy who actually helps nurses like pass their exams and stuff. Like he put together like some course on just like training and a practice exam to help them prepare for their nursing exam, whatever it's called. I cannot remember the name. Don't kill me in the comments. Relax. But like he made like I think $250,000 in like 3 months from this practice exam. And I think when we pick the right markets to go after and serve, we can be more profitable. So how did you get to this market of I want to serve engineers?
Yes, and more specifically, I'm serving hardware engineers, right? So it's not just all engineers at the moment, so it's just hardware engineers. I got to this moment because I used to be an RF engineer at Lockheed, and I've been on both sides of this, not the recruiter side, but their customer, which was the hiring manager.
Yeah.
And so my story on one side as being the person looking for a job was I just graduated college. And this was right before AI was really a thing. So this is like 2018, 2019. And I remember I went to this career fair and I had my pitch ready with, buttoned up, we got my resumes. And I had this, hey, this is the cool stuff I've done. I got rejected by almost every line I stood in.
Wow.
Yeah. And usually in that conference, the way it worked is that you have the tech recruiter first and you talk to them. If they think you're good enough, they'll be like, hey, I think you should go talk to that hiring manager. And then they give you a shot. And the recruiters, like I said, they're not technical experts themselves, right? So they're just looking for certain phrases. And yeah, all of them failed. I remember at the end of the day, I was like, what's one more? What's one more no? And I went up to that recruiter, and luckily that recruiter had to go to the bathroom. And so they called in the hiring manager himself.
Oh.
And I swear to you, I didn't change my pitch at all. I said the exact same thing I've been saying. And the guy was like, wow, that's really cool. Yeah, I know what a Pixel controller is. He's like, yeah, those are used to control quadrants. So I was like, yeah. I was like, finally, someone's understanding me. And that's how I landed my first job. So that was my first interest. Like, okay, this is weird. That's not how it should work. I should be able to explain myself the way I explain myself. And that shows that I'm a good engineer, not in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Like it's like forcing an artist to make music in a certain way. It's like, no, I need to do it my own way, right? And then when I was a hiring manager, so now, it's been a couple years, and so I was a technical hiring manager, so I didn't do the payrolls and stuff, but my job was to help, like, okay, does he actually have the technical chops? And I would come in. And I would get so many resumes that look perfect, right? And then I'd talk to them, and I was like, yeah, I used that tool once. I'd be like, okay.
Oh, man.
And then in my frustrations, I would sometimes go, talk to the recruiters, and I would see resumes that, even with the one bullet point, I was like, hey, this guy's perfect. But I realized I knew that because I know the subject matter, right?
Yeah.
But if you just look at the words, they don't match at all. And I was like, okay, something's up here. And that was my start into this. And then, I worked at Boeing, saw very similar things. And then that was like, okay, notice there's a problem here.
Man, that's so good. And now let's talk about the recruiters, because you telling that story was perfect for framing what my mind was thinking is, you had to go through this yourself. I know you experienced it yourself to get to that boiling point of frustration to be like, okay, this process doesn't make sense. So most recruiters are terrified. Most people, I think, are terrified of AI taking their job.
Yeah.
But I think specifically people like recruiters. To be clear, is your product going to affect recruiters in their position, or is it going to help them?
Yeah, so now you're delving more in the realm of my personal opinion, right? This is my personal opinion. I don't think their jobs are going to be entirely replaced. That's because it's easy to forget that AI is not magic.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of people making the mistake of, great, we have this new thing, AI. You just pump data in there, and what comes out is monetizable and better. And it's simply, my personal opinion is simply not true. And so I think recruiters are afraid that, it's going to replace me entirely. It's like, no, I think it's going to make your job, I think it's going to make you a lot better. There's probably going to be a little turmoil in the beginning as friction of people trying to figure out how to best use this tool.
Yes.
And to be honest, like I saw this, in my personal opinion, I saw a very similar shift in the mechanical engineering world just like 10 years ago.
Really?
When 3D printers, you know what those are?
Oh, yeah.
They were a big deal when they came out, right? And the conversations were exactly the same. We're not going to need machinists. We're not going to need mechanical engineers anymore. Why? Because everybody's just going to 3D print what they need. Well, it's been almost 10 plus years now, and but did it add like a little shift? Yeah. Some mechanics did lose their job. It really took over the prototyping world. But I realized the people who succeeded were not hobbyists who just picked up 3D printing. It was machinists who, instead of being afraid of it, said, let me use it to make myself better. And so now machinists that know how to 3D print are leagues better than any hobbyist or machinist that still does it by hand. And I think AI is going to be the same for not just recruiters, but almost everybody. It's like the people who use it are able to double on it, right? And speaking to recruiters directly, there's still going to be need to figure out the people skills and the social skills. I think that's one of the big things that separates real engineers. Like, my product isn't going to tell you this engineer is a nice guy, or it's not going to tell you he's a good decision maker, right? That's still up to the recruiter. What it is going to tell you is, hey, Bernoulli's equations are the fluid dynamics equations. Right. It doesn't matter if it's Monday, Tuesday, or the recruiter's having a bad day. That's still just a fact.
Yeah.
Any day of the week. Those are the things that's going to help you capture, so you become, a recruiter who almost has an engineering degree and is making decisions to that level.
Wow. And I would think that, again, the market being this market, it makes sense, because if I'm a recruiter specifically for hardware engineers, me learning a lot about that category seems like being that domain specific seems valuable versus being knowledgeable in everything engineering.
That's exactly what recruiters do. When they start, they eventually start specializing in a certain field, right? And they're better at it now because they've been doing it for a while. So they know the little nuances that a new recruiter might not know how to catch up for. And that's what my platform helps with, is that recruiter doesn't have to go through 6 years anymore, right? And so they can already start making decisions almost at that level. And if they want to switch disciplines now, they'll be just as good.
Okay, so I kind of had the same question on the recruiter side. So are there any prerequisites for the recruiters, kind of like it is for some of the engineers? Because I know if you're let's say mechanical engineer, this might not be for you, but if you're specifically in hardware, this is your space.
So recruiters, just mechanical engineers, this is actually perfect for mechanical engineers.
Really?
Mechanical engineers are in the hardware space.
Okay.
Yeah. So what I define as a hardware space is, if you're an engineer and when you're done with your work, if it's something physical you built, this is going to work for you. So mechanical engineers fit, electrical engineers fit, all those guys fit.
Okay. And so with recruiters, are you looking for a specific type?
Yeah, just like engineers, there's a whole bunch of recruiters, right? There's
so
the
many,
executive level recruiters that hire, director, VP level. This isn't really for them. These are for the recruiters that work in-house for the big companies, your Lockheeds, your Amazons, your Boeings, those guys, the big ones, or they're third-party recruiters that also help the big companies or medium-sized companies hire these engineers. And you're hiring in this hardware engineering space, mechanicals, electricals, and right now it's really good for engineers that are, if you're hiring engineers that are in the beginning of their career to mid to late career. It's not for like hiring the VP of engineering.
I like that. I like that descriptor there, because I think with these newer tools, specifically tools that lean on AI a lot, it's very broad in general. Instead of being specific to, I'm going to solve this specific problem.
Yeah.
And real engineers sound like it's solving a very, very specific problem.
Right. It's just a bit of my personal philosophy is that it's easy to become the everything tool. And, it's like, if you're the everything tool, you're also the nothing tool. So in my mind, it's like, I'm going to start somewhere, and this is a spot I know, and I know this is a spot that's extremely underserved. And that's because, like, if you look at the hardware engineers, like mechanical and all these guys I'm talking about, and you look at the college degrees given every year, at least in the U.S., 2/3 of all degrees given are in this space. The other 1/3 are software.
Wow.
Yet they get all the talk and
Yeah, they get a lot of the hype, and
Yeah.
I've been seeing them getting poached from different AI companies, and
Right.
they get a lot of the attention right now,
But
for
you
sure.
know, don't get mad at me, some viewers. But at the end of the day, something physical is always behind those things, right? The airplane still
Very
needs to
true.
fly. A computer still needs to hold that data, to hold that code. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Okay, I like that last point right there. I like that. So I want to talk a little bit more about the funding and growth side. Now, this isn't saying reveal your numbers or nothing like that, but just in terms of your goals, right? Because one thing I like to ask founders is if you were in front of the perfect VC right now that you wanted to invest in your company, what would you say to them? Why should they invest in you and your company?
Yeah. I think it's because of what you said. I am solving a very specific problem that's real. Yeah, you know, it's easy to say hiring's a problem, but to me, that's like saying I'm solving global warming.
Right.
Sure. Right. So to me, it's like, yes, hiring's a problem. You know, to me, that's global warming. I'm solving this very specific part of hiring that represents 2/3 of all engineering degrees given. And, you know, if you look at companies like GitHub and all these things that only serve 1/3 of the customer base, imagine if you had something that served the other 2/3. And it's solving a problem that's very real to them. And it's, and you can figure that out. And also, this is just a start, right? I'm starting here. If you remember, my old saying is to be GitHub for hardware engineers. So it's going to grow into something much bigger.
Yeah, I like the 2/3 point because I think that it's an untapped market, like you said. Because whenever I hear about engineers, it goes straight to software.
Right. That's what I think that might be a Seattle thing, honestly. Like when I was in Texas, that wasn't as true. Right. We would say engineers, and you know, the next question would be, okay, what do you do? Oh, I do manufacturing, right? And then, so it might partially be a Seattle, Silicon Valley thing, but hardware's all around.
Yeah, it is often forgotten though. So I think you being able to lean on that fact of the numbers of that, I think that's huge, man, because it just shows a massive advantage in the marketplace and that you just chose the right place to be in. Because it's like I've seen people all the time now who have software academies and like it's just software engineer focus. But I yet to hear anything about any other kind of engineer. It's rarely talked about. It's the weirdest thing because, like you said, it's a lot more of the types of engineers.
I mean, right now you could just drive up to Everett, where Boeing is, right? And you'd run into a whole bunch of these guys I'm talking about. I think the other reason is that software seems to focus geographically, right? Like you go to Bellevue and you see Microsoft and Google. Like there are certain areas that they just take over.
Yeah.
And they're all. You could throw a rock and you can hit a software engineer, right? Versus all the other engineers I'm talking about, the 2/3, they're less geographically focused. They're more dispersed and evenly distributed. So even though there's more of them, they're just less dense and they're not focused in certain areas. But you know, like Everett, definitely focused there, right?
Okay, so what are the goals like in 6 months, in a year? Like, what's the big goal for you right now that you're focused on?
Can my product truly solve the problem? You know, to me, it's easy to get caught up like, hey, let me get 10,000 engineers on board. If I can't help one engineer, how am I going to help 10,000? Right. So my focus in the next 2 months is to make sure the engineers I have now, and then I am still taking in beta users. We are still in closed beta. Those engineers truly get helped, and they're able to solve this problem. Right. If you've done something cool, that thing should be able to speak for itself, and a recruiter should be able to understand it. That should be your advantage, not the fact that you applied to 10,000 jobs versus the guy who you left behind applied to 5,000. That's your advantage. Like
That's.
It should be, you know, you should be judged on the content of your work. So we're really trying to solve that problem, and then in the next 6 months is to expand on that problem and say, okay, now can we solve it for 5,000? Now can we solve it for 10,000? And then on the other side of that is the recruiters. Like, okay, this recruiter just joined their new recruiting team. Are they really working using my product as if they had 5 years hiring mechanical engineers? That answer should be yes pretty soon.
Oh, wow. See, I like how you have it set up for both sides in terms of your KPIs and what you can measure in terms of success. Because sometimes when I ask founders that question, I don't get an answer. And I'm always worried. Like, how do you know if your product is good if you don't have something you're shooting for,
It's important to identify a pain.
Yeah.
But when you identify a pain, you can you can fool yourself into selling snake oil, because even if the pain is really real, that's half the battle. The other half is, can you actually alleviate the pain?
Yes.
And it's a good sign if people come to you and say, "Hey, please help me alleviate the pain." But you got to make sure you're actually alleviating it, not just patting yourself on the back like, "Oh, okay, they're coming to me."
Yeah, man. I told Ron when I first saw your product, when I saw the pitch and everything, it's so good because it's so unique. And I hear so many now that I work in this space and I interview founders and VCs and people who've gotten funding, founders who haven't gotten funding yet. I've seen all sides of it at this point. And sometimes I hear certain products, I'm like, yeah, that's going to work. Like, it'll work. I just know it'll work. Now, obviously, on the technical side of making the software work and all of that stuff is still a challenge. But the concept, the idea, incredible. So I think you got something good here, man. I'm excited to see, what the next steps look like for you. Mm-hmm. Man, if there are any engineers that are listening to this, any recruiters, how can they find you and be a part of that closed beta?
So we do have our website right now. Just there's a request for demo button right at the top, and just say, hey, I want to be part of the closed beta. And then for engineers, if you've done something cool, I'll let you in. And for recruiters, if you're in this space, we'll absolutely bring you on.
All right, man. Sounds good. Thank you for being here, taking the time. I appreciate you being a guest.
All right. Thank you for having me.